This week on the Retirement Quick Tips podcast, I'm talking about the best investment accounts for grandchildren. Now, today I'm talking about why I like trust accounts for grandchildren. Now, trust funds or trust accounts for young people kind of have a bad reputation, but for good reason, I think, because we don't want to disincentivize children. We don't want to give them so much money that they don't have to work. They can just kind of live rent free wherever they live and just sit around, I don't know, play video games all day. I don't actually know what trust fund babies do, but I know a lot of them aren't working or working less or disincentivized. So we don't want to kill that motivation. However, one of the great things about trusts in general is that they allow you to maintain control over how, when, and to whom your assets are distributed. So if we're talking about the best accounts for grandchildren for investment purposes and helping them in life, helping them financially, you can't really beat the trust account when it comes to flexibility, at least. And I think, most people also think that trust accounts, they're just for ultra wealthy, especially if you're setting them up on behalf of your children or grandchildren and doing more lifetime gifting or, lifetime transfer of wealth. But they're not just for the ultra wealthy. So if you desire to maintain control and flexibility, that's where trusts make a lot of sense, even if you don't have this huge, mega high net worth. However, there are costs associated with setting up a trust, maintaining a trust. You got to review it over time, and you have to pay an attorney, a good qualified attorney, to do all these things for you and set it up and word it properly so that it meets what your goals are and what your wishes are. So you have to make sure that the benefits of the trust and why you're setting it up and your goals for that do outweigh those costs, which they can be substantial. But I would say, they're not so high that it would lock you out of doing it all together. So I already mentioned the biggest benefit, and that is maintaining control. And in many of the other accounts designated for grandchildren that you could set up, like a 529 or a custodial account, you give up control over how the assets are spent. That is not the case with a trust. So I'll talk about the drawbacks of the custodial accounts. These are called UTMA accounts or UGMA accounts. There's different types, but they're basically what they are is it's an account that you set up for the grandchild, and you are the custodian, meaning that you are the person who is ensuring that these assets are earmarked and set aside for that child. However, the drawback is once they get to the age of majority or age of adulthood, depending on the states, anywhere from 18 to 25 years old, guess what? They get that money and they can do whatever they want with it. So personally, I wouldn't want that. I've seen it go wrong too many times with my own clients, and it's not a good idea to give someone in their late teens or early 20s free access to a bunch of money. So if I had grandchildren and I were setting up a trust, I would do a couple of things. First of all, I would make sure I'm using the right type of trust for the assets that I have, both the type of assets and the dollar value. There are tons of different types of trusts, and they work for different circumstances and situations. So a good attorney here is vital in recommending the right type of trust for you. Also, I would restrict access to the money in the trust for specific reasons. Now, this accomplishes a couple of things. This is pretty popular. It's usually for medical reasons. A beneficiary could, whether that's a child or a grandchild, can access assets in the trust for things like down payment on their first house. They can access it for medical. A lot of trusts will provide a monthly or an annual income stream and, not to exceed a specific amount. I'm not as big a fan of this because I don't like the idea of beneficiaries using it to fund a lifestyle. I would rather it be used for specific things, because if it's used to fund a lifestyle and it's unearned wealth, it really can easily distort one's values, their motivations, their incentives, can also create an entitlement mindset. And I would like to avoid those things. So free access to trust assets for whatever the beneficiary wants the money for is a non-starter in my view. And so by having restrictions over what type of spending it can be used for, it ensures that that money is not being used frivolously or to fund a living beyond one's means lifestyle. Trusts can fund college, a down payment, starting a business, helping with wedding expenses. There are lots of restrictions you could put on this. but I would not want trust assets spent to pay for, say, rent for a grandchild every single month who's sitting in their apartment playing video games, only working 10 hours a week because they can, because grandma or grandpa are paying his bills and other rent. I just think of my sons, and that's probably what they would do if they were given the option. So many trusts, they end up funding lifestyles where the beneficiaries no longer work, they aren't motivated, and honestly, nobody wins in that scenario. So you can also place restrictions for certain type of behavior. So an important one that you see a lot is grandchildren who have addictions. Do you want to give them free access to money? No. Quickest way to OD and die is to get your hands on a lot of money. So that behavioral element and placing restrictions for certain types of behaviors that you want to encourage or avoid can also be part of those restrictions. So lots to think about here, but if you are wanting to maintain flexibility and control for grandchildren and passing wealth on to them, helping them get a financial leg up in life, I would look seriously at a trust account because I think there's lots of benefits there that are worth considering. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Ashley Michike, and this is the Retirement Quick Tips Podcast.